Thank you for downloading Atypical, the podcast. If you enjoy our work, all we ask is that you leave us a review in your podcast player and share it with your friends. It helps us reach more people, and it's always great to hear from you. Thank you again, and we hope you enjoyed this episode of Atypical, the podcast.
I was just about to ask, knowing you two, I was like, have you actually got on to Christmas at all?
Well, we
talked about the Roman Empire.
About the Roman Empire.
I don't need to do the Miss Andy. The joke is writing itself. You only have to be listening.
Hello and welcome to Atypical Podcast, the podcast where we look at life from a more atypical perspective. My name's Simon Heather, your host, and I'm joined today by...
I am Filip Wieland, pronouns he, him, and for once, there isn't a reference in the title that was Georgia's idea because this isn't my other podcast.
Incredible. I love getting someone else who knows how podcasts work on, because it means I don't have to do anywhere near as much setup or planning or anything. It's great. Yes, no, it's lovely to have you. So, because you obviously are you live with Georgia, who's been on this podcast before, and did you volunteer yourself, or were you volunteered to be on today?
I think it just kind of came about that I was probably the best placed person to do this.
Because of course, it's Christmas.
Yes, it is
because
Christmas.
Well, I mean, when we're recording it, it's not because we're in the past for when this goes out, but I'm hoping this goes out for Christmas. Depends how much editing I can do between then and now.
The recording is occurring on what is sometimes known as the Christmas Adam.
Is it?
Because it comes before Christmas Eve and is generally unsatisfying. Don't tell me you didn't know this joke before!
I did, but I hadn't... It's been a very long month. My brain is not operating at peak efficiency. But
okay.
yes, so in Christmas is such a weird time of year, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's a land of contrasts, as one might put it in a mimetic fashion. It certainly is a time that is preferable to November and February. Oddly enough, January's fine, despite it being on average darker, but also February is just grimmer in general. Because at least in January you still have like the momentum of middle of winter feast holiday, whereas February is just dreary, and November is where the British winter really happens, because it is the suckiest month of the year.
Yeah, we had a few storms in November, didn't we? I quite enjoyed the big one we had, where we had people just getting stuck in all the storms and all the rest of it. And I was in deepest, darkest Scotland with Arters, and we were up at the top of sort of the far north line in Wick and so forth, and it was a lovely sunny day, and apart from being quite cold, it was fine. And everyone's sort of sending messages in sort of various of our Discord channels, going sort of like, it's Armageddon or whatever. I came back down south and, oh my god, what has happened? Northampton was underwater for about a week, wasn't it? And this was only a day after a whole bunch of people had gone to give new tickets to the place, but.
Well, certainly Northampton managed to get itself above water again by the time we went there earlier in the month. Although certainly the M11 did try its best to remain inoperative.
I mean, that's just standard, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's just like that. Junction for Stansted Airport is just there to cause trouble. It's always between London and that junction. North of that, fine. But that particular stretch is like 50-50 so far, the amount of time I've driven it and it was open or closed.
But for our American listeners, Stansted is like Newark but worse.
I've not been to Newark. I can't really tell you if it compares. my personal comparison would be hell on Earth.
Yeah, okay, fine. It's one of the circles. We're not quite sure which one. Anyway, so Christmas, like I said, like I think you're right, because like December, we still got all these sort of beautiful electric lights twinkling, even though we've got the long winter nights, and we've got these traditions, haven't we now in December? As you alluded to earlier on with winter festivals. Yes. And sort of my thinking was that, I did archaeology, was my very first degree. And some of the stuff that we talk about in these sort of pre-Christian ideals of the winter festival, we're not talking tinsel and turkeys everywhere, but we're talking fires and feasts. But how some of these evolved, I think, is really interesting as well. And sort of what we now do with those traditions we gain from them. Because if you think of things like, say, Saturnalia, which is the Roman celebration for the god Saturn. The word comes from satis, meaning to sow. My Varro is very out of date, so I've probably completely got all of my Latin wrong there. It's been a little while. But it was really like the most beloved of the winter festivals in Rome.
Is this where the word satisfaction comes from?
Quite possibly. I don't know about the etymology, but you'd like to think so.
Which is also the Benny Benassi track that McDonald's is using for their Christmas adverts right now.
Is it really?
It is.
There you go. I don't watch much broadcast TV, so I've managed to avoid most sort of Christmas adverts for the last
forced to watch like 2 days worth of ITV when I was visiting Georgia's parents a few weeks ago. That was certainly an experience in watching linear television. I do that like a few times a year, and every time ITV just manages to create a set of programming that is somehow like uniquely suited to put on in the background while you doom scroll on your phone and occasionally glance up to see whichever combination of presenters, celebrities, and random members of the public they've managed to come up with to, I don't know, play a giant version of the 2p machines.
Oh god, those things are terrible. The 2p machines. Oh, that just giving me flashbacks to holidays in like Weymouth or something. But yeah, But no, Saturnalia ran, and again allowing for calendar changes from the 17th of December until the 23rd. So today is the end of Saturnalia. I'm so sorry. And sort of it's about growing agriculture and so forth. So it kind of makes sense to do it in the darkest part of the year when you're sort of at the end of any real growing and before you get into all the sowing ready for the new year. I'm sure farmers now are going to tell me off for that, but the whole thing is far more than just an agricultural festival. Personally, I prefer to do the wassailing in January because there's more cider involved with that, but that's another matter entirely. And it's the whole period, like the sort of the social order became rather more fluid, a bit more suspended in many ways. It was a celebration sometimes thought of as being a bit more chaotic. There's a great quote which I did have to try and drag out of some of my writing earlier on. The poet Martial sort of talks about masters serving their slaves at the table and gambling being permitted when it was normally like banned, and talks about people in the streets, low Saturnalia, etc. And we do know that from quite a lot of archaeological evidence that these things were pretty widespread across the empire. We know we have people talking about it in Britain. We have people talking about it in North Africa. The width of the Roman Empire, which obviously, as we all know, is a thing that men think about at least twice a day.
I mean, you have an excuse. You actually have an archaeology degree.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, I haven't used it in over a decade. Not revealing my age.
I'll posit you a question. Insofar as there will be future archaeologists because of climate change rendering the planet uninhabitable to humans.
Yep.
What do you think archaeologists in like a few thousand years from now would dig up from the earth from our period, and what creative misinterpretations they might assign to certain objects?
Because that's a really good one, because archaeology at its fundamentals is the interpretation of cultures and peoples through the artifacts and monuments they leave behind. So what have we built recently that might last that long, and what might be preserved in certain ways? Because we now start sealing
let's
things
say
up
the
to be
railways.
preserved. The
You know,
railways, yeah, probably.
Yeah. Let's formulate this scenario, right?
Mm.
The current civilization gone. We've shot ourselves with nuclear missiles. There's been a nuclear winter for like a couple 100 years.
Yeah.
A civilization rebuilds and finds these weird metal tracks in the ground.
Mhm.
What would future archaeologists think about those?
Well, hopefully they'll consider them to be a transportation method. We've found tracks that date back millions of years, to our hominid ancestors in sort of the West African Rift valleys that we can see were sort of massively used as transportation points or routes that they would have used. Hopefully that they'll sort of interpret that and go, it's some kind of system route. They might decide it's some kind of ritual. If you don't know what anything is in archaeology, it's always ritual or religious. We can describe anything to that, can't we? They might decide it's the way of getting us to the gods or whatever else it might be. But that's quite interesting because we know of a whole bunch of archaeological sites, like I know Blickmead or a whole bunch of like Stonehenge. Everyone went to Stonehenge on 21st, right? To look at the winter solstice coming up between things. We don't know why they did that. We don't know what the real reason behind that is. So yeah, maybe people in 3,000 years will look back at the King's Cross to Newcastle line and go, what on earth were people doing there? They were worshipping beer, obviously. How is that going to be interpreted? I don't know. That's an interesting one. I think that's kind of probably why we still now struggle with understanding how did Saturnalia turn into Christmas, or did it? I think is the question, because I do remember somebody said this to me a little while ago. That it was on QI back in the days when Stephen Fry did it. They went, actually it's about Mithras, who was a sun god in Roman things. And there are a certain number of overlaps around, being a son who came to Earth and then got killed and came back to life and some other stuff. But how much of that is...
There's tons of this exact same sort of shape of myths and stories in
virtually
our
every religion
canon.
I've ever looked at has at least one of those. It's like creation myths are 10 a penny in these things. What I quite like is that within Saturnalia, for example, you would create small figurines and presents and things, and you'd give gifts. They had a form of affordable gift giving, and not just toys.
I think there were meeples for board games.
Yes, Roman meeples.
Yes, Roman meeples.
That I can almost imagine. How would they respond to Pompeii? That's anyway.
I don't know. It would have to be some kind of like massive event where someone rolls snake eyes in this hypothetical board game, and Pompeii is what happens when the players rage quit and flip the boat over.
Yeah, I think that the interesting one for me about this is sort of that evolution of the meeple giving Romans to early Christianity, and sort of, as we sort of got past them starting to become the monotheistic choice of the Roman Empire, you get this kind of interesting theological precision around practical realities, effectively. There's quite a lot of what I found to be modern assumptions around how the church was stealing these pagan holidays. But I think it's rather more nuanced than that, because I did find, and I reading on it today, so I'm a little bit behind, about first of all, the lack of early interest in celebrating Christ's birth. It was much more about his death, understandably so, the whole dying for your sins things, and the birth is... What I find interesting is somewhere around the 4th, 5th century, when they actually decided that his birthday was the 25th of December. And apparently this comes down to a Jewish tradition that great prophets die on the same day they're conceived.
Okay.
So by their calculations, Jesus died around March 25th. Therefore, 9 months, December 25th.
Well, then Easter is a moving holiday.
Easter's the moon, isn't it? So
yeah, it's the quirks of the calendar and the moon and so on. I really enjoy the sort of mishmash of symbolism that modern Christian Easter is. Appreciate
that's
this is a Christmas episode, but we
Maybe
have somehow wandered onto this particular topic. So yeah, sure.
I mean, the 25th, our friend Artis was telling me it's the 6th of January in the Russian Orthodox Church. So, it's there's still arguments even within Christianity as to where it is. But I mean, all of these things over, I don't know, 1,000 years or so. We can talk about King Athelstan, who used to like to go to Blickmead basically and have Christmas there and get very drunk.
King Athelstan sounds like a service station.
It possibly is. Grandson of Alfred the Great, so arguably the person who created England. But anyway, I think these sort of all of these arguments about like those Christmas origins kind of all come back to that. Why do we have a festival around the end of the year? Whether it's for Saturn or for Mithras or for Jesus or for
I think the framing of this being the end of the year is also relatively modern because
yes,
in a lot of cultures that predated ours, the year starts in spring. Again, probably due to agricultural timekeeping.
And I think that's where that agricultural thing comes in, is because you've got the astrological, the stars and the moons and the shortest and longest days of the year. With the 21st being the winter solstice, that is probably a good way of marking your calendar. When the days start to change. That's quite helpful then for deciding when your agricultural year is going to run to.
That's true.
As you say, we know November and February, terrible, terrible months. So it's quite nice to have something in between that's a bit more sort of, let's get drunk and see our way through to the new year. It might have been when you did all your feasting on everything's not going to last that long, so you fatten yourself up, ready for the lean months. Who knows? But one of the things which I found really difficult this last couple of weeks is just how busy you get around Christmas. How many parties have you been invited to?
Oh, absolutely.
Drinks and work colleagues wanting to catch up and dinners and visiting the in-laws to watch ITV adverts and
yes, yeah, you do tend to get quite a bit busier around this.
But this time of year, just there's loads of parties and there's seeing people. As the keeper of an autistic person, do you find sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming for them as well?
Oh, absolutely. So Georgia is she has a complicated relationship with Christmas overall because she absolutely loves Christmas. She loves like all the trappings of Christmas. She is probably the most excited in the whole household right now about the fact that it's Christmas. But also, yeah, it is just the whole thing of it, and like she spent the last few days writing a giant list detailing all of the like cooking times and things because she wants the Christmas dinner
I did enjoy the typos in the list. That made me smile.
Yeah. she wants Christmas dinner to be absolutely perfect, so she has like this massive multi-step list of like what to do when we're going to sit down and have the dinner, what time the turkey is going to be served at. And of course, the reason why we have this Gantt chart of stuff is because we want to be ready to watch the Doctor Who Christmas special on broadcast.
I mean,
we've had like TV aerial for Freeview put back in recently, so we can now watch it on BBC One, not on the iPlayer, which honestly is probably a bit of a downgrade because iPlayer will have it in 4K.
Yeah. But it's it's the experience thing, isn't it?
It is the experience of watching it on broadcast.
As a project manager, I fully approved of her writing everything down with the timings. I thought that was a very good way of doing it. Yeah.
I did have that written down in some of the notes for this, that she is very much project managing this.
Project manager's Christmas.
I'm like surprised. I mean, okay, no, she's made extensive use of Trello. I'm surprised she hasn't pestered me yet to get her a Jira license.
I haven't seen the Trello.
But maybe
board.
Jira is overkill.
Yeah, no, I want a story for each of these scope items, and can we have a stand-up to talk about this? We're going to go use waterfall and all of... If you start having a scrum with her, though, I'm calling the police. That's a completely different thing.
I mean, imagine doing agile methodology at Christmas. You would deliver a mini Christmas dinner every day.
If my friend James is listening to this, no. So you're having Christmas dinner at home? Is it the three of you or?
It is three of us. It's myself, Georgia, and my mum, and also the cats are here as well. And they will be demanding bits from the turkey, preferably still raw.
Obviously.
Yeah, but failing that, we might try to season it such that we can cut out some cat-friendly bits later on.
But no, I just going back a little bit to sort of the exhaustion of the period running up to Christmas, because there's, I think I've been to 4 Christmas sort of work-related events and several social friend ones, and then I mean even today I had people saying, "Hey, do you want to come out for drinks?" And no, I don't. My liver can't take it. Also, just it's really tiring because I mean I'm relatively social, autistic, ADHD person. I've run out of spoons. I can't do it. Just the idea of sitting in yet another pub or bar, and it's busy. There's colourful things everywhere. It's loud. Stimulation becomes a thing.
I think this year I've avoided all of that myself. Georgia's been to a few Christmas-related things and a few like last-minute things that probably happened because it is around Christmas. That's the if you heard beeping, that's the oranges that just finished boiling.
The oranges are boiled.
Oranges have been boiled.
Is that the follow-up to The Eagle Has Landed? The oranges have boiled.
Yes.
Doesn't have quite the same ring, but anyway.
No. But it is a period of time that's like full of stuff. I've mostly stuck to like the usual social things that I go to. So there's this like pub meetup with board games that I go to. Like
always good.
It's every other Wednesday. I go to like some of them, a solid some of them. Earlier on, like 30th of November, we went to a Christmas market in Folkestone with like this other social group that I sometimes hang out with, which was that was quite good. We picked up a lot of presents there. The main thing is it is quite intense, and we needed to lie down afterwards.
There's a lot, isn't there?
Yeah,
and part of it for me is making sure that I still have time for myself, because it's a whole bunch of things which are out of the norm.
Yes,
days have suddenly changed. People try and make plans on the fly or cancel them as well.
I see a chair has appeared next to me.
Oh dear.
Okay.
Should we prepare ourselves?
I think Georgia is actually joining us.
We've been joined by a Georgia. Do you want to say hello?
Hello. Hi. I'm Georgia. I'm the girlfriend. I feel like that bit of the Jeremy Kyle show where the person like walks out afterwards.
Well, you haven't seen the results from our lie detector test yet. Oh, the things Filip has to say.
I don't even know what I'm like being accused of. And I guess I never will. I have been less than 6 feet away, boiling oranges with headphones on. I heard nothing apart from a rant about ITV because you were louder than the podcast at that particular moment. But yeah.
So, do you want to tell us about the cheese strings?
Oh yeah. That was why. So I did, when I heard that, I did message the other two, being like, "Tell me about the cheese. Remind me to talk about the cheese strings," because I understand from the message that you were blaming my parents for advertising in ITV.
Sure.
And I would like to, as like a counterpoint, note that when I was like 3, one of my earliest phobias was the cheese strings advert. I have no idea why.
Okay.
There's clearly a noise in it I didn't like. I was fine with actual cheese strings. I'm not the biggest fan of actual cheese strings, but just like a normal amount. I just really didn't like the advert for some reason, to the point that I then got scared of TV adverts in general. So
Fair enough.
I would like to just offer a defense that my parents are actually quite skilled at avoiding those, or at least they had to be for a little while.
I mean, as someone who likes actual cheese, I will be avoiding cheese strings just in general. So.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Again, they're not. Then, like, I've never been keen on them, but I also would not run away from them and screaming in a shop. Whereas,
Yeah.
like, I would run away screaming from the advert, or would mostly.
Yeah, and as someone who grew up in a country where the cheese has actual flavor, I would say, what are you doing with cheese strings? Just get yourself some like Patra Mountain, like proper cheese strings, the
Yeah.
sort of smoked kind.
Ooh. Well, we're putting a pin on it. We might come back to some of that in a minute. But I was asking Filip, Georgia, about what's it like keeping an autistic person around the Christmas time, and how tiring can it get?
I was just about to ask, knowing you two, I was like, have you actually got on to Christmas at all?
Well, we
talked about the Roman Empire.
About the Roman Empire.
I don't need to do the Miss Andy. The joke is writing itself. You only have to be listening.
It's just we were talking about the Roman Empire.
Yeah. Congratulations. You've now reached your gender stereotype quota for 2024. having tried to adhere to it all year, you've done like a mad run at the end, and now it's okay. You're free. You've hit your quota. You can be yourselves again.
Gender any percent speed run.
Anyway, before more silliness hits the podcast, because I've got to edit this before Christmas. So Christmas, obviously, lots of events are going on. You know, people are doing drinks and meals and parties and all of the rest of it. It's kind of tiring, isn't it, as an autistic person? There's lots of weird new expectations and things and stuff. Well, maybe it's just me. Maybe you are the life and soul of the party. I don't know.
I mean, I was thinking all day that I'm probably a bad example here because I do actually really like Christmas.
You do.
But also, like, I'm enjoying, like, it is a lot more chilled than I'm used to this year and last year. Basically, my family are very big on Christmas. I thought this was normal until I introduced Filip to my parents one December, and he was like, why am I in a sitcom / Hallmark movie?
I mean,
what is going on?
To be fair, what sort of happened is that I also realized that I've not been super big into Christmas, as you know, people might expect me to be. But that's probably like, okay, put it this way. I'm not Scrooge. I'm gonna let you have your Christmas. I just think that you're
only saying that because you know I know the three ghosts.
Yes.
And can have them haunt you.
You have the three ghosts on speed dial.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not Scrooge. I wasn't like the most into Christmas. Maybe something to do with having a January birthday and just stuff blending into each other.
So I'm quite into Christmas, and my family are quite into Christmas, and it is quite full on.
It is.
And this year, for various reasons, it's worked out that I'm here with Filip and his mum in one part of the country, and we don't like. How do I put this? When I say my family live far away, I feel bad because I'm sat next to somebody whose mum lived in Poland until very recently. So not far away, but like, you know, they also do not live next door.
No.
They live medium distance away. And so that is definitely something I find very odd. But I guess also this year has been a lot more I also used to live in London until last summer and then moved away from there. So I think with those things, it's suddenly been a lot more chill. Like we did a Christmas market, but I think technically in November.
Yeah.
I did the work party, which I work for an autumn charity, so that is a lot more chill than perhaps others might be.
Well, you did have to run off to Parliament midway through.
Yeah, I did have an external meeting that was in Parliament, so that was unfortunate. But yeah, other than that, it was quite chill. We saw my family a couple of weeks ago, and we'll be there again in the next few weeks. Pending other things. And I saw some friends at different points, kind of in the past few weeks, as and when I've been in London for work. But suddenly, it's like the next week or so is like, oh, it's us.
Yes,
it's us, and that's quite chill. I was coming home from. I was actually overnight in London on Wednesday and Thursday last week, so I was seeing some friends after work. And then I was kind of coming back. I got to the train station and was coming back up to our house. And I just had a moment like, hang on a minute. I've just completed trains. Like, I actually do not anticipate going on a train again this year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Depending on what happens with the next couple of weeks, I had a moment like, oh, right, this is it now, isn't it? We're like going to have a chill time.
Very
and
nice.
then, of course, we had to go shopping.
We did have to go shopping.
Oh,
yeah.
no. Yes, so the Christmas shopping experience. Should we talk about how hateful that is? I don't know about you, but I had to call into a supermarket on my way home from the station earlier on, and
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I kind of wish that I'd had, sort of a stab vest and an armed guard to help me sort of deal with some of that. It was a lot.
So we went on Sunday.
Yes. Do you know what? I think so. One of the things that I've sort of had to grow accustomed to living with Georgia is the interminable list. There's a list for everything. She'll spend like a couple hours doing a list and then 15 minutes actually implementing the steps on the list.
Uh,
Which, as someone who like not confirmed, but I've got ADHD, right? I
confirm it.
I just do. You can. I just do the 15-minute implementation in 5 and call it a day.
No, Philip always laughs at the number of lists I write. And I think
it's genuinely helpful this time of year because we have a battle plan when going into Morrison's for Christmas shopping.
Yeah, so my job in Morrison's, so the three of us went. So it's myself, Philip, and Philip's mum. We are a neurodivergent sitcom household. It's great. 3 of us went. And basically, you had the trolley, I think, most of the time. Your mum kind of also had her own thing that she wanted to do.
Yes.
So she had a little basket. And my entire job was keeper of the list. I walked around with my phone being like, this aisle, these are the things we need to get. This aisle, these are the things. It was a bit like Taskmaster, like at the start of every, because my list wasn't ordered by aisle, because I don't know the aisles. I do most of my shopping online for this very reason. Like, I don't know the aisles order. So I had to kind of stop at each one and be like, right, this is what it does, and this is what we need. So it did feel a little bit like, right, your mission for this aisle is, and it was wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
And we actually had a relatively smooth trip to Morrison's.
Only one of us wanted to leave midway through.
And it wasn't either of us. Yeah. But like, also, I might. Shall I talk about the little adventure I went on Thursday?
You can talk about a little adventure.
Yes. I had an idea for a high effort shit post that didn't work out. The fact that I'm saying this in front of Philip and he knows about it, I need to say this. He knows about it because it didn't work out. Philip and his mum are both very big fans of Quality Street. And we, so it is Quality Street season, of course. And you were talking last week, you were kind of basically complaining about how many toffees there are. Because the toffees are always the ones, in this house anyway, the toffees are always the ones that are kind of left and, And
I like toffees.
I thought, well, you should be here. You can eat the toffees.
We will send you all of the toffees.
So,
actually no. You're the person who they made the toffees only bag for.
Yeah, that was it. We were at the town and we saw a toffees only Quality Street, and Philip was like, "No, I want one that doesn't have the toffees." And then I got to thinking,
toffee exclusionists.
Yeah, and then I got to thinking, like, I'm sure there's a way to get personalised Quality Streets. And I kind of looked up online and there were a few like extortionate online offers. And then John Lewis do a pick and mixes at Christmas. I thought, oh, where's the nearest one to us? Nowhere near us. I thought, okay, but there's a few in London, right? Maybe, there's a few in London. Maybe one of those will do it. basically the feasible John Lewis for me to get to from working in central London is John Lewis Oxford Street, which is like right next to Oxford Circus station. And I
know it.
And I thought, well, I'm going to be in London because I've got plans on Wednesday night, and then I'm going to be in the office on Thursday, and then I could just like delay my journey home, just go around Oxford Street, go into the John Lewis. This is the Thursday before Christmas, and get this pick and mix. And essentially, to be fair, the only reason it didn't work out was because everyone else would be doing the same thing and that I was going about 6 o'clock in the evening, it would basically be sold out. So they only had 3 types of Quality Street available, and one of them was the very toffees that we were trying to avoid. So I ended up at that point being like, and I saw the queue, and obviously it was quite overwhelming. I was like, okay, I'm leaving now. But honestly, while I was there is something about, not to like let the side down on behalf of all autistic people, but there is something about that, like, oh, it's the week before Christmas and you're in the big shops with the big lights and the crowds. There's something about that I find quite nostalgic. I think it's because I did a lot of like Christmas Eve shopping with my dad as a kid, and it kind of reminds me of that. But I think I coped with that because I was going to do one very specific and time-limited task. Once that task had failed, it was a bit like Cinderella at midnight sort of thing. I sort of looked around, because initially I was thinking, oh, I could get something else while I'm here. And I looked around and I was just like, no, I have to leave immediately. And I do not recommend getting Oxford Circus Tube at 6 p.m. the week before Christmas, or ever, actually. So I don't know why I did that to myself, but I did do it. So yeah, that was my little adventure.
That was.
I'm sorry it didn't work out.
That certainly was an adventure that I've then heard of, the story of, and said to Georgia, why?
Yeah,
Why?
I messaged Philip when I kind of was in that moment of like, oh, this has gone wrong, I'm not really sure what to do. I messaged Philip and was just like, do you need anything from John Lewis Oxford Street? At which point, you must have been very confused.
Yes, I was very confused.
Because I then didn't actually explain it until I'd like got out of there, sat down and had something to eat, which took a little while.
Yes.
Because Oxford Circus. So yeah, I did, I went out, because I work 4 days a week now. I went out one Friday at the town in like late November, early December. No, it must have been late November, to get a few bits, including some Christmas bits. And I came home with 3 advent calendars. 3 of us in the house. I came home with 3 advent calendars. And Philip looked at me like I had 3 heads. And Philip's mum, when she later came home and saw it, also looked at me like I had 3 heads. Because apparently, and I quote, we're adults. Nobody told me about this.
I think it's an incredibly inefficient method of chocolate delivery.
Well, not really. It's a calendar, but it's a calendar that gives you chocolate. You can't see the look he's giving me, but yeah.
Oh no, you can, because I've turned off the camera preview, but the camera is on.
I can see it. The listeners can't. But...
Oh, so you saw me. So you saw me wave earlier. Well, hello again.
I did.
No, this is something I found out. Is I like having the camera preview for setup, but once I've set myself up, I can't stand having myself talk back at me when I'm on video calls. I turn it off.
Yeah.
So Simon, I think what we cut you off saying was that you have an advent calendar.
No,
please
I don't.
Come to my defense. Oh, okay.
I don't,
okay, then please come to my attack.
So I don't have an advent calendar.
I thought I completely misheard you. Okay.
I do have lists though, so I'm on your side on lists, not advent calendars.
Every time, like whenever we go away somewhere, like when you went on holiday, I'm like, Philip's like, have you started packing yet? And I'm like on my phone, but I'm writing a list, which is a very important step in order for me to know what to put in the case. Whereas the way Philip's brain works is he skips that step. He opens the case and chucks stuff in it, and somehow you're good enough at that it does always work.
I think the last time
controlled ADHD.
Yeah, I think the last time we were going away for somewhere, I literally said to her something like, "I think you would have already started your packing list, right? You should add this thing."
Yes, we went on holiday recently, and because we were away for a couple of weeks, we'd need to wash our clothes. And there was a laundrette, and Philip, like a good week before the holiday, Philip just kind of turned around and said to me, "Georgia, can you please put washing powder on the list you clearly already have?" And the thing is, I did already have a list.
And washing powder was on it.
No, washing powder had not yet been on it. I added washing powder to it, and therefore we remembered the washing powder. It's a good system.
It is. Anyway,
man.
so Christmas. So, because just doubling back to something Philip said earlier on, obviously, Georgia, you have a very particular love of Christmas. Philip, you were saying that obviously it's somewhat different from where you grew up.
I wouldn't say it's different from where I grew up in terms of like intensity of it. I think it's different in the traditions.
We need to talk about food at some point, but carry on.
Oh God, I'm trying to avoid talking about food because that's like a favorite topic of every single neurodivergent conversation.
For what reason?
And
we'll come to food in a bit, I'm sure.
We will.
Sorry, I interrupted
we will
you.
get to the food in a bit. Yeah. So I grew up in Poland. And the structure of Christmas is a bit different. The sort of big meal is Christmas Eve dinner. Where
yes, several European countries are like that, aren't they? So
yeah. Where we basically get a load of fish. In Eastern Europe, carp is very popular. We can't stand carp. It's weird, but we did get ourselves like essentially a whole salmon in Morrison's.
Ooh, nice.
Morrison's the only supermarket that actually has a proper like fish selection, and it's not just plastic packaged nonsense.
I've got to say, salmon is much bigger than I expected it to be.
It is big. It
Yeah.
is big.
They are big fish.
Supermarkets don't want you to know how big salmon is. They want to sell you like
the
200 grams of salmon, and yes,
yeah,
it's a scam. So yeah, we are big on Christmas Eve in Poland. Obviously, we'll do Christmas Day celebrations as well, but not of like a massive bird. We tend to settle for slightly smaller birds like duck, or in a larger family gathering, goose.
Oh, I do. I see.
It's worth noting that because of the fun cultural mix we have, we are doing Christmas Eve dinner, which is the one your mum is in charge of with all of the fish, and I'm doing Christmas Day dinner, which I'm very excited / nervous about.
Yes.
Less nervous now that I've got a list and I've been ticking things off the list, and it's all going to plan. So,
and I think in the new year we'll have to go on a Zempic after the festivities.
No, we're going to go on radical body acceptance. much healthier. What was I gonna say?
You were certainly gonna say something.
Yes, no, I remembered. So you're big on Christmas Eve, and the other thing that I've noticed, because I mentioned that my family are really, really big on Christmas and quite big on New Year, because I'm from a place called Corby in the Midlands where everyone has Scottish grandparents for some reason. So New Year's quite big. But
so you'll be doing a Kaylee, will you?
Probably not, no. But you guys,
I mean, depends on where we'll end up.
Yeah, that's true. But you guys are big on Easter.
Well, specifically, me and my family are quite big on Easter.
Yeah.
I think Easter is a much bigger thing in Eastern Europe in general, but like specifically us, we like our Easter.
So
Easter did come up earlier in the conversation as well.
Sorry, have you already talked about all of this?
No, oddly enough, we were talking about Easter when we were talking about the Roman Empire.
So for me, growing up, Easter was kind of like my. There was a brief attempt at making the Easter Bunny happen, but the Easter Bunny didn't really happen. It was kind of this is the point where we get a long weekend off and some chocolate eggs. That's nice, but that was kind of all there was to it.
Yeah.
I came downstairs on whenever Easter Sunday was, back in March. I came downstairs to find this like massive breakfast that had been laid out. It's like really bad. And I was like, what is going on? What's going on?
Yeah, do you know why?
It was Easter, you know?
Do you know why? It's because in Central and Eastern Europe, ham and cheese are actually good.
Yes.
And in Britain, they're shit.
Okay. They're foods that my brain recognises exist, which means it hits a level that some foods don't. I will concede that the stuff in Poland is much better.
Yeah, generally, hams, meats, things like that are somewhat better.
And I should say with the cooking and stuff, because I'm conscious that I've just come from boiling some oranges, and this makes me sound like some kind of Nigella Lawson figure. I am absolutely not. Philip does, you and your mum,
yes.
Philip and his mum do the majority of the cooking. I am not very good at it, and I have to it's kind of the same thing I was saying with packing, right? I have to follow a recipe. I will watch or read the recipe lots and lots of times. I'm going to check I'm doing it exactly right. Philip will, if he's following a recipe, he will see something once, go, I can make that, and then makes it with no further reference, or something like it with no further reference to the recipe. More often, he will open the fridge,
look at what's there and come up with something.
And come out with something, which is a skill that I've actually got a lot better at cooking.
You have?
Since dating you, but that's in large part because, firstly, cooking for one is really hard anyway, but also, I can try more things and more ingredients now, knowing that even if I don't have a plan for the rest of it, it will be used. It will be used by somebody, and they don't have to plan in advance that they're going to use it. So it's a complementary set of skills, but yes, I want to say that because me doing the Christmas dinner has been I really want to do it. I'm quite excited about it, but it is a bit of a military operation.
Yes.
But remember, no plan survives contact with the enemy.
So this thing, I quite like baking, and we've kind of had these conversations before about the fact that cooking is an art and baking is a science. In baking, you do have to get everything exactly right, and that kind of appeals to me. And I'm wondering, I'm hoping that there's something about, because the hard bit of the Christmas dinner is getting everything ready at the same time.
Yes.
So having everything timed so that it is ready at the same time. And that there's something in that thing that appeals to me. I enjoy doing the list. I enjoy thinking about the list. I enjoy following the list.
Mm-hmm.
There's a list. That's good. I like lists. So, I'm wondering if actually, even though you would think of it as cooking in hard mode, there's actually something about it that works better for my brain.
Yes.
If we were pulling together sort of some top tips for other keepers of autistic people about surviving Christmas, a list is obviously going to be one of them. But I think we need to make a list of all the things that might be useful.
So I think, to be fair, as much as I like my list and I like my everything going to plan, it is helpful in some ways, kind of annoying sometimes, but often helpful to have the calming influence of it's okay if this doesn't go to plan.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
I think the big problem, especially right now, because this is your first time doing it, you have this whole thing about wanting this Christmas dinner to be absolutely perfect.
It must be exactly like my mum has made it, or I have failed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which
you will not be able to judge this because you've never had Christmas dinner with my mum. But
first of all, it's fine. The biggest way to screw it up would be to have a meltdown in the middle of cooking the turkey.
So the biggest way I can ruin Christmas is by having a meltdown wanting it to be perfect. So if anyone at home has a way to not have a meltdown but to also have it be perfect, I'm all ears.
I think the problem is you have to accept that it's it doesn't have to be perfect. We just have to have a good time. And crucially, having a good time means that you don't ask me 50 times in one day whether I'm having a good time. Something you have done in the past when we were at your parents'.
I'm happy about, I just want you to have a good time. And I should say, given that we're talking about autistic traits and so on, this is because Philip is one of the people who probably doesn't help that I am also clinically bad at reading faces, but Philip is the kind of face that you can't really read. He could
That's
be
because there's a
feeling
lot of
anything
hair
in there.
there.
That's true.
Yeah, there's a lot of hair.
Yeah, but like, it's like, you could be feeling anything, and I don't necessarily know, and I want you to be having a good time. The other
So
thing that does happen
You're
is I
trying
do...
you're trying to do the autistic thing of going, should I be able to read people's minds? I can tell you, neurotypical people can't do it much better than we can, so don't worry
No.
about it.
The other thing I do is that, like, I do sometimes ask you or whoever I'm with if they're okay a lot, to mean that I am very not okay,
Yes.
and that I'm not okay enough that that's
Yes.
what I'm doing.
Yes.
Which is I only realised I did that last month, so that's useful.
This could be like a whole nother episode.
We do need to do Simon Does Couples Therapy.
We
at
do
some
need to
point.
do that one. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fine. Anyway, we'll do the couples therapy one another time, but don't worry too much about what he's thinking in terms of your food. It'll be lovely.
Yes.
And I guess
it won't be the same as your mum's because you're not your mum. It'll be different, and different is better.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I have a certain theory here.
Okay.
Which you've written down. You're reading out notes.
We love a theory. Okay.
Yeah. This is like what I've sort of slowly realized over the months and years of knowing Georgia. You don't much like it when things are different. You don't particularly like change.
Philip,
Change
autism.
Change has to be
It's a big deal.
communicated to you like months in advance. You have to do an internal consultation process and set up an implementation group with the focus group in your mind.
If you have to comply with the gunning principles when you're doing this, that's
But on the flip side, once you are presented with change, you're actually quite quick to incorporate that change into your routine.
Yeah, I guess the other thing I'm thinking about here is last year, to cut a long story short, Philip's mum was still living in Poland. Initially, she was going to be coming here, and then the plan changed and we went to Poland, and it was lovely.
Yes.
But the plan only changed in, like, again, early October. So it was months in advance, and I was quite upset about it when you told me.
You were.
Because it's so close to Christmas, and the plan had changed. And I look back
You've
at that
already
and go,
bought some of your Christmas presents.
Yeah.
Which is the other thing that Georgia does. Like, we would be on a summer holiday somewhere, and she would buy stuff in a gift shop,
for
thinking,
Christmas.
this would make a good Christmas present for someone in my family.
Wasn't that organised this year? This year, my first Christmas present was only in mid-October. August time, you start thinking, like, because where my family's birthdays sit, it's kind of first half of the year, really. So, like, my brother's in late July, and then after that, it's like Christmas time. You got to start thinking about it in the back. No, you don't have to start thinking about it, but it's in the back of my head. If I see something and I think person will like this, I go, the next opportunity is Christmas. If I get it now, I'll feel very organised.
Mm-hmm.
But what was I going to say? Yeah. So going back to top tips and food, because I think one thing that I definitely like, again, last year we were in Poland and it was really fun, but the food was very different and I did struggle with that. The food was often good once I had put it into my mouth. But I had to get round that this thing in front of me is a food and I have to put it in my mouth. And I don't know exactly what it's going to be like yet because I haven't had it before.
As a side note, I love that the question that started this whole thread was addressed to the keeper of the autistic person, and you're doing all the answering.
Yeah,
which it's perhaps better overall.
You're usually so good at this. Why have you come on this podcast and now it's like I'm discovering the neurodiversity movement from first principles? But like
I think food and autism is such a big thing. We're probably going to do an entire episode on it at some point. But
I guess for a tip for the keeper of the autistic, I would say like having safe foods available.
Yes.
You know, we've talked about this about breakfast, that because we're doing the Christmas Eve meal, there's no point, and the Christmas Day meal, there's no point in us going all out for breakfast because we'll probably be pretty full. So we'll probably have leftovers and stuff. But
you gotta have your Weetabix.
specific about like some foods are breakfast foods and other foods are not breakfast foods. And Filip doesn't really have distinction.
I mean, I tend to prefer my breakfast to be like the lightest meal in the day. But
what that consists of your is anything goes.
Like, yeah.
It's easy to make and relatively light.
I tend to like skew eggs more towards breakfast times than dinner times. But yeah, I'm pretty free in terms of like what I have for breakfast.
There's something there about
like,
maintaining
nice cereal, and then I get a choice. I can have my nice cereal. Maybe.
Yes, right, Simon. What were you saying?
I was just thinking. So there's something there about maintaining a level of normality, a type of consistency, and around food, for example, that can be a big one for a lot of autistic people. You're having something different. I don't know about you, but I don't particularly like turkey anyway. But you don't have turkey every single week usually. We don't have all the trimmings and everything else. So sometimes it's. Do you think sometimes there might be a thing around making sure that the neurodivergent person in your life, or yourself, I suppose, as well, if you're responsible for yourself, like I am, apparently, supposedly, maybe, has also still got some of those normal foods in place, the ones your fallbacks, your safety foods.
Yeah, I think for me it is more of a fallback.
I would go a sort of step meta here and say that to a large extent, maintaining your neurodivergent person over the holiday period is about giving them something that they can have control over.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't have any worries about the Christmas dinner.
Yeah,
I'm eating it.
exactly.
I mean, I have worries about the Christmas dinner, but not about eating it.
Yeah, because you know what's in it.
Yeah, I think it's helpful. I think
you will have to touch the food, though.
Yeah, this is the thing I'm worried about. In order to make the turkey, I will have to touch it.
Yes.
But I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But I guess relating to that, I definitely find it helpful when I am feeling a lot of things, and Christmas is a time to feel a lot of things. I definitely find it helpful to have like stuff to do.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And Christmas is a time where there's lots of stuff to do that I like. I like being like, right, I'm going to go and rap for 3 hours, and I'm going to be thinking about Christmas, but I'm going to be thinking about it in a kind of way that I can channel into something and isn't ruminating about what I've forgotten at 3 a.m.
I mean, yeah, sure, and that's a good point actually. Perhaps maybe one of the reasons why I'm not super into Christmas in like the recent 5 or 6 years is because I've had some pretty dodgy Christmases.
Okay.
Sort of spending Christmas in 2020 in lockdown away from my family in Poland sucked. And then the next year wasn't all that much better because of we had to do Christmas, and then very quickly afterwards we had to organize a funeral. So yeah, that wasn't the best Christmas either. No, I think I'm warming up to Christmas again now.
I'm basically, there's a lot of talk about like autistic women being kind of thought of or treated as like the manic pixie dream girls you get in films. And I think the Daily Tism live show covered this recently. That's like, oh, autistic woman confused to manic pixie dream girl, now rebranding as Christmas elf, And I basically, the thing is, when it comes to Christmas, I basically am in that role really for real.
Yes.
And I'm sometimes like,
It's infectious.
Because I also don't want to like, the worst thing when someone is feeling like down, the worst thing you can do is be like, but chill up, it's Christmas. You're supposed to feel happy. It's like that can be so counterproductive. And I've been in that kind of position as well. And I do worry. I'm like, am I doing that? I think
you're doing
that enforced jollity thing can be really tiring and draining, can't it?
Yeah, and I think it took me a while. Like, I think growing up, it took me a while to really get that about other people. But I also think, again, we are neurodivergent sitcom household. We are very accepting of people we all at points just run off to our rooms, and that's fine. And I think having those kind of escape spaces helps as well.
I was going to say, I think the next point I was going to make was about make sure you've got your own quiet space, so somewhere you can go to when it starts to get a bit much, because you're obviously quite comfortable with your little family. Certainly, lots of other people might be traveling across countries. They might be going, to all sorts of places and end up, surrounded by 20 of their family, screaming children, and their wife's brother's second husband's goat's tennis partner has turned up.
These are the Christmases I remember. But
that can be really overwhelming, because you might not be in your own place. You might be, And so I think if you do know that you've got someone in your family who's neurodivergent, knowing that there might be a bit more sort of a space they can chill out in if need be, and sort of letting them know, that might be quite a useful thing perhaps.
Without having to explain themselves and jump through a million social hoops to get there, because that's literally the thing autistic people find difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, one of the things which I think might help is if you have a bedroom upstairs or whatever, and you can just say, it's there if you need to use it. And then just let them slip off and do that. But again, that comes down to that family dynamic thing as well, is that, a lot of neurodivergent people don't necessarily spend that much time with their family if they have bad memories of earlier life experiences. And you get this sort of enforced jollity and time to, spend with family, because it's all about family, etc., isn't it, at Christmas? And I think that can be quite hard for some people to navigate.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a particular dynamic in this household is that Georgia and also my mom both think the other one is mad at her at all times. And
I mean, I think everyone is mad at me.
No,
but especially your mom.
No one's mad at you. Maybe
people are sometimes mad at me, statistically speaking.
Maybe sometimes Prince is mad at you for not giving him food fast enough.
And also, no one in this conversation is currently a member of Parliament responsible for delivering autism strategy, so we're not angry at you for reminding us of this.
Exactly.
That's true.
Look, if you find yourself in a position like that, the best thing to do is to just talk to them like they're a cat. Make sure there's no sudden stimuli, and explain quietly the situation that no, the other person is not mad at you. They're just also stressed because Christmas is an inherently stressful period.
Yes.
Even if it's also very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is stressful.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe the autism's animals is an interesting one to use there. I think you make a good point there when you said about, don't surprise them, don't make any sudden moves and so forth. Because, if you've got someone in the family who doesn't like, I don't know, sudden loud noises, pulling crackers might set them off. And being aware of these sort of things, or people who don't like surprises. I've got a friend who does not like presents because they do not like surprises. But if you tell them, this is what I am getting for you.
I do have a friend who is very much like, thanks, I'll open this later. When no one is around. And that's okay. That's fine. Now I know that that's how it is.
Yes.
Then that's, I'm not...
You like to see the reaction.
But that's not more important than, if it's going to be stressful to someone to give me a reaction, then, fine. I can see lots of other people's reactions.
Yes.
So, I think... Because we do this thing with autistic people, and perhaps autistic children in particular... there's this whole, you have to make a big show of being grateful and you have to perform this or everyone's mad at you. So it's no wonder that some people then be like, well, I just associate this with a ton of anxiety now.
Yeah.
That is a thing. It's not necessarily something that I struggle with. I think I'm just not very good at masking, and so I just accept that people are going to be mad at me for finding it ungrateful, so... Sorry, I'm not ungrateful. I love it, whatever it is.
We're not going to be mad at you.
Okay, but
we'll take notes and recalibrate for next time.
No, but a
proper project manager. Lessons learned.
Yeah.
And then you can make lists about it.
We can have a retrospective.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I'm finally gonna learn what a retrospective is. So
we'll feed it into the risk review. It's fine.
And I guess relating to that. There are going to be, it is quite hard to generalise because every neurodivergent person is so different. But essentially, this is quite a heightened time. There's lots of sensory things. There's lots of, routine things. There's lots of social things that are all things that neurotypical people or potentially other neurodivergent people might not think of as big. And I guess, it's, if it seems to be big for the person, it's big for the person. And what seems like a tiny little thing to you, actually that small change can make a lot of difference. The other thing in my head is that I've got to watch Muppets Christmas Carol tomorrow. I've got to find a 70-minute slot or 80-minute slot in which Muppets Christmas Carol, and I sound unhinged to everybody I talk about this to, but you know,
I don't think so. If that's a tradition you have established, then that's the thing to do.
It's also a good film. I love that Michael Caine is playing Scrooge absolutely straight.
Mm-hmm.
It gives this like magical quality of being Muppet and also simultaneously high art.
There's a fantastic quote from Michael Caine about like the process of him being cast in this role, and he basically said like he only agreed to do it on the condition that he would play it like it was the Royal Shakespeare Company. What was his exact word? And like if he was going to be Scrooge, he wasn't going to like
he was going to be Scrooge.
He wasn't going to be all like, you know, jolly about it for the kids. Yeah. He was doing a proper Scrooge, and I think it works really well.
So much depth.
Yeah. But yeah, things like that, and things for some people it is wanting a particular safe food that may or may not be traditionally Christmas associated. Mm-hmm. Just sometimes those small changes can make a massive difference.
Yeah, and
but yeah, so going back to where we were, so we have our lists, we have our safe foods, we have making sure that Georgia knows about changes that need to be made a minimum of 6 months ahead of time.
Yep,
perfect, correct.
And I think, is there anything else around if you were visiting or you got people visiting, setting times so that people have expectations around?
Yeah, I definitely, as a kid, like, this is quite hard because, like, again,
as a kid, I've been to your parents. People just drop in like it's a convenience store. It's literally like being in a sitcom.
Hello. Can I be nice about my parents? So my parents are often the hosts for various reasons, and they're very, very good at it. And sometimes that's really fun. But one disadvantage of this is that when I was done, I couldn't go home because I was already at home.
Yeah.
And yes, I can go hide in my room, but that will only get you so far when everyone is being as loud as people tend to be at Christmas. Mm-hmm. So in some ways, I also quite liked when we went to other people's houses, because then when I was done, I could go home. Often this resulted in this was like my gran being a getaway driver of sorts. Mm-hmm. And like, you know, she'd want to go home early and I'd go home when she went home, or sometimes she would just have to come and get me, which I am very grateful for. But like, when you are the person hosting, or when your family is the family hosting, that is much less possible. And I would certainly be much more stressed about Christmas if we had guests coming over than if we didn't, because you are kind of, as nice as it is sometimes, you are kind of stuck with them.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, and I think you sometimes get stuck with family and visitors, and because it's of that sort of like that feeling and so forth, it can feel a bit more overwhelming perhaps around Christmas than other times of the year.
It's the feeling trap. That is often what gets me in a lot of situations, and I guess that also applies to this one.
Yeah.
So I think that's a few good things we've got there. But before you go back to getting spirit messages from Fanny Craddock and preparing all the food, remember, you know, Filip is not Johnny. You're not allowed to berate him whilst drinking wine.
Can I berate him while drinking Diet Coke?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. I actually, that is another thing I was thinking about. I know that like Christmas tends to be in a lot of situations tend to be a very boozy time. Don't force alcohol down anyone's throat. If you like it, that's fine. Try to be reasonably responsible with it so that things don't happen that shouldn't happen. But also equally, it's a choice that everyone should be free to make, and no one should be.
Yes, absolutely. There is
for the benefit of the listener, I did want to just highlight Simon's face on hearing the words "drink responsibly."
Was to uncork this bottle of whiskey next to the table and take a swig of it. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing, as someone like, I guess we're complaining a lot of issues here, but as an autistic person who does not drink, and so is often not on the same level, you know what it's like when some people are drunk and some people are. It's a different kind of thing. Like one other thing that happens when people have had a lot to drink is that they get more unpredictable and perhaps are not being their best selves as regards to following any of these top tips, and that's quite hard in itself.
And also louder.
Yes, there's a bit of that, isn't there? They get louder, more gregarious, and less predictable.
Yes.
Yeah, so that can be tough. But again, like, I don't want to be all like, I've as someone who is personally haunted by the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and yet to come, I obviously don't want to be like Scrooge on this. So I guess I just
you're haunted by 3 ghosts and the sun.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this time of year it's the 3 ghosts, and then when their time comes to hibernate, it's the sun's turn. It works really well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think
we should do one of these about going on holiday with your autistic.
I do also want to do about one about traveling when autistic, and we need mysterious voice for that.
Yes.
But no, I think the alcohol one, you're absolutely right. I mean, alcohol happens throughout the year anyway, but there does tend to be a greater proportion of people who feel like it's that, almost like you have to have it at Christmas in order to be, having part of the good time. So if you don't have
New Year as well. This is
New Year as well.
Again, someone with Scottish family, massive with New Year.
New Year is almost worse because it's like one of the few times a year where people get into their heads that they can let off fireworks.
Yeah.
As opposed to every other night of the year when it's dark.
Well, most people don't do that between January and November.
Yeah. And that can be a whole thingy, all that stuff. But I have one final question for you before we...
Okay.
So, Die Hard, Christmas film?
Ooh. I think it counts. See, my Christmas film of choice, if you ask me to name a prototypical Christmas film, I would say Home Alone. The first one, the other ones suck, but the first one's good.
My take on this is broadly yes, because any film is a Christmas film if you watch it enough at Christmas and start associating it with Christmas and really try hard to make it Christmas. Frozen, which is famously set in the summer, Christmas film. Die Hard, Christmas film for a lot of people, sure. Any Muppets film, inherently Christmassy because the Muppets are in it.
Yeah, fair. My Christmas film of choice I will be watching tomorrow with my mum is Airplane.
Okay. I
don't think I've seen that one.
Choice.
We will make you watch Airplane at some point. You'll enjoy it.
Does it have Christmas? Is there a Christmas connection to it at all?
Surely you can't be serious.
Don't call me Shirley.
Oh, it's that one. Okay.
It is that one.
Okay. I know that joke.
Anyway, we've been talking for quite a while. I know you have more cooking to do and cakes to make.
I should have said as well, with the Christmas dinner stress, we don't have guests. It's quite a chilled... We don't have an agenda. It's quite chilled, generally. The one time pressure that is making me really stressed about getting Christmas dinner together is that they've put Doctor Who on at 5:10.
Yeah, I did get to that. I did get to that earlier, yeah.
Fair. When 5:10 rolls around, I will be very excited for Doctor Who.
See, the problem is, of course, that Aardman Animation decided to release their new Wallace and Gromit.
Which I'm also very excited about. Please don't sue Simon Aardman.
No, it's fine. Very excited.
So yeah, no, it's gonna be good. And you're probably gonna be dragged through your first Gavin and Stacey episode ever, which is also the last Gavin and Stacey episode. So that'll be interesting.
Oh, probably, yeah.
But yeah, it's gonna be pretty chill, and I am very excited for it.
Yeah.
Marvellous. Well, I think thank you both for joining me. I hope everyone enjoys their Christmas day, and I'm sure we're going to have some conversations in the new year. Apart from when I get you both onto the chaise launch and say, so tell me about your relationship with your mother, and then we work our way up from there. I feel like we need to do an episode on how autistic Doctor Who is over the years, but that might come later.
If listeners are interested, earlier this year I was on Galactic Yo-Yo talking about this very subject. So that is available in podcasting places.
You'll find that in the notes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We also have a podcast about the Doctor Who spin-off series Doomsday called Cruising Through Doomsday.
The Bastille reference in the title was my idea.
There we go. I was meaning to like take it down because I'm paying for Podbean to host it, but I just didn't.
Well, before you take it
couldn't
down,
be bothered.
people can find it in the show notes of this episode if they're
absolutely.
interested in that. So go check out more interesting Doctor Who related stuff from these two.
Lastly, I make music as Philip Wieland. You can find me on Spotify. Georgia is also on it. We've been trying to do more music together. We might release some next year. Stay tuned.
Literally.
Anything you would like to plug, Georgia?
Autistic is not a priority report on the state of the waiting list is the main thing I want to plug. And then I'm at Mind the Flap on all the socials, and I have a blog currently mindtheflap.wordpress.com, which I should get around to updating at some point.
Yes.
Yeah. Like I say, we'll have links for all of these things in the show notes, and people can hopefully try and find you and talk interesting things about autism and music and all of the fun stuff around all of those. But I think in the meantime, we'll say thank you very much to you both for joining me, and Merry Christmas to all our listeners.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Oh, Georgia, I have only one thing to say to you about this, I'm afraid. The game.
Yeah, the game. You realise? Hang on. Does this mean that all of your listeners have also just lost the game? Okay.